Welcome to UPSC Study Academy, empowering aspirants and shaping futures.
Hello and welcome to our channel. Today we dive into the top 10 landmark judgments that have shaped the legal and social landscape of India. These judgments have not only interpreted the law but also expanded and modified it to uphold justice, equality, and fundamental rights. Let's get started.
In the history of India's judiciary, few cases have had as profound an impact as the Kesavananda Bharati versus State of Kerala. This landmark judgment, delivered in 1973, fundamentally shaped the contours of constitutional law in India. Before this monumental decision, the Parliament wielded extensive powers under Article 368 of the Indian Constitution. This article granted the Parliament the authority to amend any part of the Constitution, including the fundamental rights. This absolute power raised concerns about potential misuse, where essential liberties and the core principles of the Constitution could be altered or eroded. The Kesavananda Bharati case began when Swami Kesavananda Bharati, the head of a religious sect in Kerala, challenged the state government's attempts to impose restrictions on the management of religious property. This case escalated to the Supreme Court, where a bench of 13 judges presided, the largest bench in Indian history. After extensive deliberations, the Supreme Court delivered a historic verdict. The court ruled that while the Parliament indeed possesses broad amending powers, it cannot alter the basic structure of the Constitution. This decision introduced the basic structure doctrine, a principle asserting that certain fundamental features of the Constitution are beyond the reach of amendment. These include the supremacy of the Constitution, secularism, democracy, and judicial review. The judgment emphasized that these core elements are essential to maintaining the identity and integrity of the Constitution. The impact of this judgment was profound and far-reaching. By instituting the basic structure doctrine, the Supreme Court placed a crucial check on the Parliament's amending power. It ensured that the core principles of the Constitution could not be tampered with, safeguarding the democratic framework and fundamental rights of citizens. This decision reaffirmed the role of the judiciary as the guardian of the Constitution, capable of intervening to prevent any attempts to undermine its foundational principles.
The Maneka Gandhi versus Union of India case stands as a beacon for the protection of individual freedoms and the advancement of personal liberty. This landmark judgment, delivered in 1978, redefined the scope of Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. Before this pivotal decision, Article 21 of the Indian Constitution guaranteed the right to life and personal liberty. However, its scope was narrowly interpreted and could be curtailed by any law enacted by the Parliament. This limited interpretation left individuals vulnerable to arbitrary state actions, as long as there was a legal basis for such actions. The case arose when Maneka Gandhi, a prominent journalist and the wife of Sanjay Gandhi, had her passport impounded by the Indian government without providing any reason. Challenging this action, she approached the Supreme Court, arguing that it violated her right to life and personal liberty under Article 21. In a transformative verdict, the Supreme Court broadened the interpretation of Article 21. The court ruled that any law affecting personal liberty must be just, fair, and reasonable, thereby expanding the scope of the right to life and personal liberty. This meant that the procedure established by law must also pass the test of reasonableness, ensuring that state actions were not arbitrary and met the standards of fairness. The impact of this judgment was profound, ensuring greater protection of individual freedoms and embedding procedural fairness as a cornerstone of Indian jurisprudence. The ruling emphasized that the right to life and personal liberty is not merely a physical right, but includes the right to live with human dignity, encompassing a wide range of derivative rights.
The Minerva Mills Limited versus Union of India case in 1980 is a landmark decision that further solidified the basic structure doctrine established by the Kesavananda Bharati case, emphasizing the judiciary's role in upholding constitutional principles. Post the Kesavananda Bharati judgment in 1973, there was lingering ambiguity regarding the extent of Parliament's power to amend the Constitution. The basic structure doctrine had been introduced, but its application and limits were yet to be clearly defined. The Minerva Mills case arose when Minerva Mills Limited, a textile company, challenged the constitutionality of certain amendments made to the Constitution, particularly those that seemed to curtail judicial review. The Supreme Court, through a 5-judge bench, delivered a decisive ruling. It reiterated that any amendments affecting the basic structure of the Constitution were invalid. Crucially, the court held that the power of judicial review itself is a part of the basic structure and cannot be taken away. This reinforced that Parliament's amending power is not absolute and must respect the core tenets of the Constitution. This judgment significantly strengthened the judiciary's role in protecting the Constitution. It ensured that checks and balances on legislative power are maintained, safeguarding the fundamental framework of Indian democracy. By affirming judicial review as a basic structure, the judgment underscored the importance of the judiciary in preserving constitutional supremacy and preventing arbitrary amendments.
The S.R. Bommai versus Union of India case in 1994 is a landmark decision that addressed the contentious issue of President's rule under Article 356, significantly impacting the balance of power between the central and state governments in India. Before this pivotal judgment, the use of Article 356 to impose president's rule was often arbitrary and misused. This practice undermined state autonomy and posed a threat to the federal structure of the Indian constitution. Instances of politically motivated impositions of president's rule were common, leading to instability and questions about the fairness of central intervention. The case began when the Karnataka government, led by Chief Minister S.R. Bommai, was dismissed by the central government, which cited a breakdown of constitutional machinery. S.R. Bommai challenged this dismissal, leading to a significant Supreme Court ruling. The court, through a 9-judge bench, laid down stringent guidelines for the imposition of president's rule. It held that such imposition should only occur under genuine circumstances of constitutional breakdown in a state. The court emphasized the importance of federalism and state autonomy, stating that the power under Article 356 is not absolute and must be used sparingly and judiciously. This judgment curtailed the misuse of Article 356, reinforcing federal principles and safeguarding state governance. It ensured that president's rule cannot be imposed based on mere political expediency, but requires concrete evidence of a constitutional breakdown. The decision strengthened the autonomy of state governments and established judicial review as a critical check on central overreach.
The Vishaka versus State of Rajasthan case in 1997 marked a significant milestone in India's legal framework concerning workplace safety and gender equality. Prior to this landmark decision, there was no specific legislation in India addressing the issue of sexual harassment at the workplace. Women often faced hostile work environments with inadequate recourse for addressing incidents of harassment. The case arose from the brutal gang rape of Banwari Devi, a social worker in Rajasthan, who was punished for preventing a child marriage. The Supreme Court responded by formulating the Vishaka guidelines, setting out comprehensive measures to prevent and address sexual harassment at workplaces across India. These guidelines mandated employers to create mechanisms for redressal, raise awareness, and ensure a safe working environment for women. The Vishaka judgment had a profound impact on Indian society and legislation. It catalyzed the enactment of the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace, Prevention, Prohibition, and Redressal Act in 2013, which provided a statutory framework for addressing workplace harassment. This legislation mandated every workplace with 10 or more employees to establish internal complaints committees, ICCs, and outline procedures for filing complaints, conducting inquiries, and providing redressal.
The Indra Sawhney versus Union of India case in 1992 stands as a landmark in India's constitutional history, particularly in the realm of affirmative action and reservation policies. Prior to this crucial decision, the implementation of reservations for other backward classes (OBCs), as recommended by the Mundal Commission, faced significant legal challenges. The Mundal Commission report, aimed at addressing social and educational backwardness among OBCs, proposed quotas in education and public employment. The case was brought before the Supreme Court challenging the constitutionality of the Mundal Commission's recommendations. In its ruling, the Supreme Court upheld the provision of reservations for OBCs, recognizing the historical and social disadvantages faced by these communities. However, the court introduced the concept of the creamy layer. This concept excludes affluent or socially advanced members within the OBC category from availing reservation benefits. The court argued that reservations should target those who are genuinely socially and economically disadvantaged, rather than those who have already benefited from educational and social opportunities. The Indra Sawhney judgment had a profound impact on India's social and political landscape. It struck a balance between promoting affirmative action and ensuring that reservations effectively reach the most marginalized sections of society. By introducing the creamy layer concept, the judgment aimed to prevent the perpetuation of privilege within disadvantaged communities and to promote social mobility and equity.
The Navtej Singh Johar versus Union of India case in 2018 heralded a watershed moment in India's legal and social landscape, particularly concerning the rights of LGBTQ+ individuals. Historically, Section 377 of the Indian Penal Code criminalized consensual homosexual acts between adults, stigmatizing and marginalizing LGBTQ+ communities. This law had been a subject of controversy and criticism for its discriminatory impact. The case was brought before the Supreme Court challenging the constitutionality of Section 377. In a landmark ruling, the Supreme Court struck down parts of Section 377 that criminalized consensual homosexual acts between adults. The court recognized that criminalizing such acts violated the fundamental rights guaranteed under Articles 14, 15, 19, and 21 of the Constitution, including the rights to equality, non-discrimination, and personal liberty. The Navtej Singh Johar judgment had a profound impact on Indian society. It marked a significant step towards equality and non-discrimination, affirming the rights and dignity of LGBTQ+ individuals. The decriminalization of consensual homosexual acts was seen as a move towards fostering a more inclusive and tolerant society, where individuals are free to express their sexual orientation without fear of legal persecution.
The Justice K.S. Puttaswamy, retired, versus Union of India case in 2017 marked a historic turning point in India's legal landscape, particularly concerning the protection of individual rights and freedoms. Historically, the right to privacy was not explicitly recognized as a fundamental right under the Indian Constitution. This lack of explicit recognition raised concerns about the scope of personal liberty and privacy protections in the digital age. The case was brought before the Supreme Court challenging the constitutionality of certain government policies and practices that infringed upon privacy rights. In a landmark ruling, the Supreme Court unanimously declared that the right to privacy is a fundamental right protected under Article 21 of the Constitution. The court emphasized that privacy is essential for the protection of personal liberty, dignity, and autonomy. The Justice K.S. Puttaswamy judgment had profound implications across various domains. It established a robust framework for safeguarding privacy rights in India, influencing legislation, policies, and judicial decisions related to data protection, surveillance practices, and individual autonomy. The recognition of privacy as a fundamental right reinforced the judiciary's role in balancing state interests with individual rights, particularly in the context of advancing technologies and evolving societal norms.
The Shayera Banu versus Union of India case in 2017 was a landmark legal battle that addressed the contentious issue of instant triple talaq, talaq-e-bid'at, and its impact on Muslim women's rights in India. Prior to this pivotal decision, the practice of instant triple talaq allowed Muslim men to unilaterally and instantly divorce their wives by uttering the word talaq thrice, often without any valid reason or legal recourse for the women involved. This practice was widely criticized for its arbitrary nature and its adverse effects on the lives of Muslim women. Shayera Banu, along with other petitioners, challenged the constitutional validity of instant triple talaq before the Supreme Court. In a historic ruling, the Supreme Court declared that instant triple talaq is unconstitutional, violating the fundamental rights guaranteed under the Constitution, including equality before law and the right to life and dignity. The court emphasized that the practice is not an essential part of Islamic law and cannot be protected under the guise of religious freedom. The judgment had far-reaching implications for Muslim personal law in India. It led to the enactment of the Muslim Women, Protection of Rights on Marriage, Act in 2019, which criminalized the practice of instant triple talaq and provided legal safeguards for Muslim women against arbitrary divorce. This legislative reform aimed to empower Muslim women, ensuring their right to dignity, equality, and justice within their marriages.
The IR Qualo versus State of Tamil Nadu case in 2007 marked a significant turning point in India's constitutional jurisprudence, particularly concerning the immunity of laws placed in the Ninth Schedule from judicial scrutiny. Historically, laws placed in the Ninth Schedule of the Constitution were considered immune from judicial review. This immunity shielded such laws from being challenged on grounds that they violated fundamental rights guaranteed under the Constitution. The rationale behind placing laws in this schedule was to protect them from legal challenges that could otherwise strike them down for violating constitutional provisions. The case was brought before the Supreme Court challenging the validity of certain laws placed in the Ninth Schedule after the Kesavananda Bharati judgment. In a landmark ruling, the Supreme Court held that laws placed in the Ninth Schedule, after the Kesavananda Bharati case, are subject to judicial review if they violate the basic structure of the Constitution. The court asserted that while Parliament has the power to amend the Constitution, including placing laws in the Ninth Schedule, such amendments cannot alter the basic structure of the Constitution. The IR Qualo judgment had profound implications for constitutional law in India. It ensured that no law, including those placed in the Ninth Schedule, is beyond the scrutiny of the judiciary if they violate the basic structure doctrine. This reaffirmed the supremacy of the Constitution and protected fundamental rights from being undermined by legislative action shielded from judicial oversight.
These landmark judgments have played a pivotal role in shaping the Indian legal system and protecting the rights of its citizens. They highlight the dynamic nature of the Constitution and the judiciary's crucial role in interpreting and upholding its core values. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insightful content.